You are not broke, at least not on paper. You are not careless with money either. Yet your life keeps feeling smaller than it should. Your salary arrives on time every month. The bills get paid without chaos, but the feeling of relief never really shows up. You are not living a luxury lifestyle. You are not overspending on random things. Still, there is no real breathing room in your finances. As your income grows, your costs quietly follow. Your time horizon stretches, but so do your obligations. And somehow, life feels more expensive instead of easier. This is not a motivation channel that sells easy answers. This is where we break down how money actually behaves over the long term, so you can see why doing everything right still feels off. The problem is not your work ethic. It is not your discipline either. The issue sits quietly inside the structure of your life. You built a life that looks reasonable from the outside. A decent apartment and a practical car. Nothing excessive, nothing obviously wrong. Everything feels standard on the surface. Everything looks aligned with expectations, but the numbers behind it are slowly applying pressure. Your income might be $4,000 to $5,000 a month. On paper, that suggests stability over a long-term horizon, but your lifestyle behaves like it requires more. So you start asking what is missing. You question your own decisions and effort. Even though the system itself introduces hidden volatility, you are simply following a system that rewards visible upgrades, a system that quietly increases your baseline over time. Like compounding but working against you? Without noticing, your spending drifts beyond your natural capacity, not dramatically, just slightly above, but enough to affect your long-term stability. The gap is small, almost invisible at first, but over time it behaves like a quiet drawdown. And that is how you get stuck without realizing it. A salary increase feels like progress at first, but it quietly shifts your expectations upward, and over time it changes what feels normal to spend. You upgrade your apartment without much thought. You choose a slightly better car because it feels justified, and your lifestyle adjusts to match your new income level. Nothing feels excessive in isolation. Each decision seems reasonable on its own, but together they form a structure that is hard to escape. Every upgrade introduces a new fixed cost. These commitments extend your financial time horizon, and they reduce your flexibility without you noticing. At some point, your life stops being flexible. Your monthly obligations begin to dominate your decisions, and your risk tolerance quietly decreases. You are no longer choosing freely. You are maintaining a system you built over time, and stepping down feels harder than stepping up. The exhaustion is not just from work. It comes from the constant pressure to sustain, and from avoiding any financial drawdown. So every time your income grows, your costs follow closely. The gap never expands the way you expected. And compounding works against you instead of for you. This part is rarely discussed in public conversations. You are not really living on your current income. You are living on an assumed future version of it. Your decisions are not based on what you have today. They are based on what you expect to earn later. That expectation quietly shapes your risk tolerance. You tell yourself the same familiar story. Your income will grow and your career has momentum. It feels reasonable within your current time horizon. And to be fair, sometimes that assumption holds. Income can increase and volatility may stay low for a while, until one day the trend breaks without warning. Life does not move in a straight upward line. Sometimes it stalls and sometimes it pulls back. Drawdowns are part of every long-term system. But your expenses do not follow that same pattern. They are fixed in structure and slow to adjust. Your financial system lacks flexibility when income changes. Rent stays the same every single month. Debt payments continue regardless of your situation. Your lifestyle baseline resists downward change. And that is when the realization becomes clear. The issue is not simply how much you earn. It is the structure you built around it. This pattern has a name. It is called the future income trap. And it is more common than people admit. You are living today using assumptions about tomorrow. The numbers feel reasonable on the surface, but the time horizon is doing all the heavy lifting. It feels stable, but it is structurally fragile, because everything depends on income that has not arrived yet. That introduces hidden volatility into your life. This is not about right or wrong decisions. It is about timing mismatch. Your lifestyle moved faster than your income curve? Your life expanded first? Your income is trying to catch up later. That gap creates a constant financial drawdown feeling. When the gap is small, it feels manageable. You barely notice the pressure building, but over time, it quietly compounds. That is why relief never fully arrives. You are always adjusting to keep up. Not optimizing, just reacting to past decisions. It does not feel like progress. It feels like chasing stability, and stability keeps moving just out of reach. The system quietly encouraged this behavior over time. Housing markets and social platforms continuously signal what normal should look like. Without noticing, your expectations begin to adjust to that signal. Everyone around you appears to be moving forward. Promotions, upgrades, and curated moments create a steady sense of progress. You begin to feel like staying still carries its own kind of risk. Living standards rarely jump all at once. They rise gradually, almost invisibly, across time. This slow shift makes it difficult to notice the increase in baseline expectations. What once felt sufficient begins to feel incomplete. The same income now supports a different expectation set. This is how perception shifts before numbers do. This pattern is not a personal failure. It is a predictable response to a shifting environment. Systems influence behavior long before conscious decisions are made. Income growth does not always match this pace. Raises happen in steps while costs evolve continuously. This mismatch creates long-term pressure on your financial stability. The pressure does not come from having nothing. It comes from maintaining something that keeps getting more expensive. Financial stress often emerges from this growing gap. Your lifestyle and your income begin to diverge. Over time, that gap becomes harder to ignore. This is where quiet financial risk begins to build. The solution is not extreme or dramatic. It is not about cutting everything or stepping backward. It starts with understanding the structure behind your life decisions. Not every upgrade needs to be taken immediately. Not every level needs to be chased right now. And not everything you can afford fits your current time horizon. Margin is not just a number in your account. It is the space that absorbs volatility and unexpected shifts. Without margin, small changes create large drawdowns in your life. Space creates options over time. Options give you control in uncertain situations. And control is what reduces financial risk in the long term. Delaying an upgrade is not losing progress. It is building a buffer before increasing commitments. That buffer improves your long-term stability through compounding decisions. This is not about holding yourself back forever. It is about adjusting timing with intention. A small delay now can prevent a long period of financial stress later. The goal is not to appear successful to others. It is to remain stable under pressure. Stability reduces emotional and financial volatility over time. A strong life is not the highest level you reach. It is the one that survives different conditions. And survival is built on structure, not speed. You didn't fail. You just moved too fast building your life. Your time horizon didn't match your decisions. And that's human. Most people follow the same pattern without noticing. Social pressure quietly compresses your margin. The difference is awareness. Some people recognize the pattern earlier. That changes their long-term trajectory. Once you see the pattern, you don't panic. You start adjusting slowly. You reduce volatility in your decisions. You don't need a full reset. That usually creates more risk. Small decisions compound better over time. Then something subtle happens. Margin starts to appear. Slowly, but with real impact over time. With margin, your decisions feel different. There is less pressure and less hidden risk. Even small drawdowns feel manageable. It's not about being rich. It's about having space. And that space changes everything long term. Maybe you don't need a bigger life. Maybe you just need a life you can actually sustain. Something that matches your current capacity, not your future expectations. It's not about looking like you're moving up. It's about being able to hold your position without constant pressure. Stability is quieter, but much harder to fake over time. In the long term, security doesn't come from bigger numbers. It comes from having space in your system. Space reduces volatility and absorbs unexpected drawdowns. The more space you create, the more options you start to see, and options change how you respond to risk over time. That's what real freedom looks like in practice. If you're starting to notice this pattern, take your time with it. Understanding systems always compounds slowly. This channel exists to help you see the structure more clearly, without illusion.